Hello, Matt. Welcome to the Action Network Podcast, UFC Betting Preview. I'm Sean Zerillo, joined today by Billy Ward to help you break down this weekend's UFC card, give you our best bets, favorite underdogs, top props, and more. And if you'd like to instantly tail some of the bets that we discuss on today's show, you can find the quick slip links both in the video and the podcast description, or go to actionnetwork.com/betnow. 12 fight card from the Etihad Arena in Abu Dhabi, UAE. Early start time for this card, noon Eastern on ESPN. So make sure you get those bets in early. 5-fight main card on ABC at 3 p.m. Eastern. 7 prelims, as I said, starting at noon ET. The main event in the middleweight division between Robert the Reaper Whittaker, Bobby Knuckles, currently about minus 148 against Reinier de Ridder, about plus 120. Fight is roughly plus 200 to go to a decision, minus 275 to end inside the distance. Billy and I are on opposite sides of this fight and on opposite sides of a lot of the fights on the card this week. I'm going to go ahead and give out my breakdown first, just because I have a written preview for this one up on actionnetwork.com. I think there's a bunch of fighters this week that are very overweight in terms of the public projection market. A lot of fighters being picked more often to win than their betting odds suggest. De Ridder falls into that category. I'll touch on the other ones throughout the show, but roughly De Ridder getting picked to win the fight about 48% of the time, listed around 43 to 44% in the market, so about 5% above where he's listed. There's other fighters on the show we'll talk about who are being picked about 10% more often than the betting market suggests. Now, De Ridder is taller and longer, and he does have the grappling upside in terms of just being able to get on top of Whittaker and maul him. We've seen in his more recent fights, his more recent losses, Whittaker has struggled with the physicality of both Hamzat and Dricus du Plessis. De Ridder has shown that he can out-physical dudes like Kevin Holland. Was great in his fight against Bo Nickel, but this is a much different matchup for me in terms of Whittaker being able to deny the takedowns, potentially get back to his feet, and then just win the striking. So I do think De Ridder has the grappling upside. I do recognize that is how he wins the fight, but across a 25-minute fight, I think Rob just has more ways to win, either by finishing the fight, having better cardio, winning minutes down this stretch. I think he's going to be the more efficient striker. Eventually, we'll figure out the height and reach and end up taking over the fight with better cardio. I really did not like De Ridder's 1 5-round fight that he had in one championship, where he went all 5 rounds, ended up winning the decision, but he ended that fight on bot, looking completely exhausted in the 5th round. He basically gassed out. And at middleweight, having to cut weight for this fight, I don't think it necessarily helps his ability to go 25 minutes. So I just like Robert Whittaker in a 5-round fight, the ability to win down the stretch, the ability to finish this fight late. If De Ridder is too big and strong for him and is just able to get on top and finish the fight, that is how I think he wins, just like how he won the Kevin Holland fight. So Billy, I'm curious to hear your breakdown, whether you think De Ridder has more winning upside than I give him credit for, and then also whether you're interested in live betting Whittaker at any point during this fight, because I do like Rob pre-fight up to about minus 160. But I also like him live after round 1, really any time after round 1, as long as the price improves. Basically, I'm waiting for De Ridder to win either round 1 or round 2 with a takedown and some control, and then bet Whittaker at a better number. So you're taking De Ridder pre-fight, but are you interested in this one live at all?
I am, and I'll actually start by saying anytime you and I disagree on the main event, I would urge our audience to side with you on the main events. You do the full preview of those. I take a quick look at them just because you got to talk about the main event.
I feel like anytime we disagree, though, I like a live bet too, and you're like, I'm going to start off with the underdog and then live bet it. So yeah. I feel like that's more so where our disagreement comes from when we're on opposite sides of a main event. You kind of think the same too, right?
Yeah, also true. And I am, if it comes up, planning on betting Bobby Knuckles live. But yeah, just I know that you're covering these. I have other fights to get to. I don't spend as much time breaking these down. With all of that said, the 5-round fight for De Ridder was at heavyweight. Yes, he's cutting weight now, but he's also carrying less weight than he was. He probably never should have been a heavyweight. Like, he was kind of forcing the extra weight on to even be that. I think light heavyweight, is probably the sweet spot for him in terms of how he performs physically. Obviously, you have to fight bigger and stronger guys at higher weight classes, so he's making the choice to cut more weight. Also weird when guys come over from one, because they do the hydration tests, so you can't cut weight the same way you do in one as you do in other organizations. That's why we see a lot of guys come over at a lower weight class. I believe Kai Sakura mostly fought up a weight class in one versus where he came to the UFC. we're going to see a lot of that. Actually, wouldn't shock me if Buchecha, who we're talking about later, could get down to 205 now that he can cut weight a little bit easier. That's a topic for later in the podcast. It's just the size and strength advantage. We got to remember Whittaker's, solidly muscled dude, but he is a former welterweight. He's not even a big middleweight. And RDR has only ever lost to heavyweights effectively. Like the one lost to Anatoly Malkin were they both at heavyweight or was one at light heavyweight?
I think
one was at light
heavyweight.
One
was at light heavyweight, yeah.
But still, like a guy who's much bigger, stronger. RDR, as awkward as he is, like he kind of makes it work with the striking just to get into range. And the underrated part is he doesn't just wrestle; he's a high-level judo guy. So if it gets into the clinch, he can force it into close quarters. He uses those throws, and because he's so long, his opponents have to close that distance to get to where he can grab them and then set up for throws. I like that dynamic for him. As you pointed out, if it goes long, I do expect Whittaker to have more success later in the fight. So if we get a plus money price on Bobby Knuckles, I'll probably end up with plus money on both guys. But this should be a really fun fight one way or the other. I think no matter what side you're on, you have a pretty decent chance of looking really stupid because Whittaker starching him in 30 seconds would not shock me. And RDR doing the same thing Hamzat did to Whittaker also seems mostly plausible other than like totally smashing his jaw. I saw this fight described as technique, Whittaker, versus enthusiasm, RDR, which I really appreciated because it's just going to be kind of a weird fight, I think, especially on the feet. And then RDR will look good if he can get it to the ground. I don't see Whittaker getting up other than, the round ending if that happens, which is another big part of if we get that takedown, we'll probably at least win the round, get a better price on Whittaker. But other than that, I do think we see it mostly similarly.
Yeah, I completely agree. After hearing your breakdown, I just want to discuss the two RDR losses. One did come at light heavyweight, the other at middleweight, but both against Anatoly Malkin. He did retire in that second fight. He basically just didn't get up. He got taken down in the third round. He quit, and the ref ended the fight.
Light heavyweight and heavyweight, no. Not light heavyweight and middleweight. Light heavyweight and heavyweight were the two losses.
Yeah. The wiki says light heavyweight and middleweight.
I'm seeing heavyweight and light heavyweight on Tapology. Although I think they define weight classes differently. So like the weight is what we would consider heavy and light heavy, but one calls.
Yeah, they do light heavyweight up to 225 and then middle to 205, right? And one, it's like slightly different.
Yeah. So effective, like what we consider light heavyweight and heavyweight by American commission standards or whatever.
Got you. Yeah, that's a fair point. That's where the
but either way,
I don't love him him refusing to get up in a 3-round fight, the third round of a title fight, and then just ending a 5-round fight on bottom. Thought both of those were particularly bad looks, even though he won the 5-round fight. But yeah, I think Whittaker live may be the best angle. RDR wins round 1 or round 2. You don't have any ticket at all. You can get Whittaker even money live after round 1, minus 110. Live after round 2, something like that. I think that could be the best approach for betting this fight. I just like Whittaker to take over down the stretch of the championship rounds, as long as he doesn't get finished on the mat, which is very possible in the early stages. Let's move on to our fight of the night, though. I would assume you will have a preview up for this one on actionnetwork.com. Petr Yan, about a minus 400 favorite against Marcus McGee, plus 310. My hot take here, Billy, I'm willing to put this on the air. I think Marcus McGee is better than Sean O'Malley. Same gym. I think McGee's more well-rounded. I think McGee's more durable. I think McGee hits harder. Yes, but O'Malley's more technical, probably quicker. If you had Sean O'Malley and Marcus McGee fight, I might bet Marcus McGee.
Yeah.
And now O'Malley obviously has the win over Yan. I thought Yan won that fight. I think you thought Yan won that fight as well.
Everybody thought Yan.
Everybody thought Yan won the fight. Not that O'Malley wasn't competitive, but Yan probably clearly won the fight. What I'm interested in here is Yan has been mixing it up, winning fights by mixing in takedowns. McGee hasn't been taken down, I believe, in the UFC yet. He's very physically strong. Yan, I talk about regularly on the show, is the inventor of Petr Yan disease, which is guy who does not start fast in a 3-round fight and lets round 1 slip away. And then you have a close and competitive round 2 and then take over round 3. Well, you're a minus 400 favorite and the fight is coming down to one judge in round 2, which is what happened in the Sean O'Malley fight. So, Billy, I want to hear your thoughts on my hot take and whether you think I'm way off base saying Marcus McGee might be better than Sean O'Malley. And then how you're betting this fight. We both like McGee to be competitive early, win a round here. And then I think we both like Jan if his price improves after round 1. But I'm actually more interested in my hot take and your analysis on that I am in your bets for this fight.
I don't think it's that hot of a take, with the caveat. I mean, it's that hot of a take in terms of how people will react to it. I don't think it's outlandish by any stretch, with the caveat that McGee is somehow 35, despite just having 11 pro MMA fights. You know, he's 5 years older than O'Malley. He might be better now. He might have been better 6 months to a year ago. He won't continue to be. I don't know exactly when that turnaround point will be. So, like, that's the weird thing. Like, I looked at this fight, I was like, oh, cool. They're seeing if Petr Yan still has it against this up-and-coming prospect, Marcus McGee. Except the prospect is like 3 years older than Yan, which doesn't make any sense. It feels like we've seen the best of Yan already. And he's only, still 32, or turned 32 in February, which is just, it's a weird dynamic with that. Yeah, in terms of how I'm betting it, I'm trying to get greedy here and take Marcus McGee plus 3.5 points on the point spread. That's minus 105, assuming Petr Yan does Petr Yan things and loses the first round. Then I'm going to come back with a Yan live bet. Mm-hmm. If all goes according to plan and Petr Yan wins 29-28 on at least 2 of the 3 judges' scorecards, then you can cash both of those tickets. Ideally get Yan. After he loses round 1, will probably be minus 200 or so. I don't think the market will massively overcorrect, but that way you're kind of covered in both ways. Either eventual winner at that point pays you out, and you have a chance of threading that needle and getting both. For all the reasons you said, McGee is explosive and athletic. He's going to look good early as Yan gets his reads and dances around. The interesting thing about the takedowns is he's mixed in a lot of takedowns, but probably more foot sweeps than anyone I've seen since like mid 2000 or mid 2010s John Jones. Like he's mixing them in as part of his punching combinations, and he's not really looking to aggressively grapple you. He's just breaking your balance, making you get up again, wear yourself out, which also plays into him building over the fight, right? Because if you've had to get up 3 or 4 times, had your timing thrown off every time you step into strike, you're not going to be as aggressive or have as much cardio later on. So I love that aspect of Petr Yan's game that he's added, but it only like furthers the dynamic that we've seen with him. Have it down in my notes. He's lost 5 of the last 6 first rounds he's been in on at least 2 scorecards, and all 6 of those fights have gone to a decision. So this is just what we see with the Petr Yan fight. He loses the first round, wins most of the time overall, but I feel like we're very likely to see that again given the dynamics.
Yeah, he paces himself like every fight is a 5-round fight, which is a huge issue when you drop back to 3-round fights. Incredibly well-rounded fighter, incredibly talented, maybe still the best 135-pounder out there aside from Merab. But he just has some stylistic tendencies which do not give him the best chance to win, which is why a live bet could be the best approach here. McGee by decision, plus 500. I think if you're going to bet this fight, if you have to bet this fight, aside from McGee plus 3.5 at minus 105, which you like, McGee by decision at 5-1, I think would be the only alternative approach, and the judges potentially favoring his power in a close and competitive fight that is juiced and likely to go to a decision. Speaking of fighters who go to decision and end up with wonky scorecards, Davey Grant at plus 295 on the money line is my favorite underdog this week. I make him about plus 228. I'd bet him down to plus 250. He has gotten robbed probably twice in his losses. Daniel Marcos, Adrian Yanez, arguments for winning both of those fights. He's competitive with Chito Vera too. But Davey Grant, super underrated. The main issue here is he's 9 years older. So this could be an age trap fight against Damon Blackshear, whose striking looked better in his last fight, landed 125 strikes against Alatang Haili. But in this matchup particularly, if Blackshear is not grappling successfully and holding position or finishing via submission, I think this is another coin flip fight and another close and competitive decision for Davey Grant. And I think Grant has more knockout upside on the feet than Blackshear as well. Blackshear has the submission upside on the map, but I make, as I said, Grant about plus 225, like him down to plus 250. I also make the goes to decision prop, though, about minus 180, and they're giving you even money on this fight GTD. So both Grant on the money line and the goes to decision prop at plus money. I'd bet that GTD, though, probably all the way up to about minus 125. Billy, Davey Grant against Damon Blackshear. Any bets that you like for this matchup?
I would actually combine those and go Grant by decision, or Grant in the decision only markets, because the way Blackshear grapples is he's not trying to win rounds, he's trying to get submissions. You know, like he'll give up your back to try to go for a twister. And he has the one win by that, but he's tried it in a couple other fights, both before and after that. And that just makes it hard for him to win rounds. So I didn't look to see what the decision only market was. That would be an option on Grant, as well as Grant by decision if you want to get greedy. Just, it would not at all shock me if Blackshear tapped him with something crazy. But if he doesn't, then Blackshear's fallen off, maybe losing the round helps the other guy, you know. So that's how I play that one. I can tell you're looking up the decision only right now.
215 decision only, Blackshear minus 295. That seems like a pretty good price.
Yeah, I didn't look at this fight at all, really, going into this podcast, but I'm going to bet that decision only money line for those reasons. I think it kind of combines both of the things you said in a nice way, and then limits your downside, obviously, if the 39-year-old's chin is gone or gets tapped with something crazy by Damon Blackshear, who's known to do that.
Yeah, that's a good recommendation. I probably prefer that to the plus 3.5 at plus 120 as well, which you also lose if he gets finished by submission. So good look on the fly by you there. Let's go on to your favorite underdog, a fight that I think is a potential dog trap based upon the betting percentages, not based upon the tape and how I feel about these fighters specifically. But Tabitha Ricci, I should point out, is a very popular underdog selection.
Yeah, I'll get to the stylistic stuff in a second. The big thing for me is that these are extremely similar fighters, and for some reason, one of them is plus 170. Like, I broke this down in both luck ratings and the full article I have. They're Brazilian women between the age of 30 and 32. Both have black belts in jiu-jitsu and judo. Both throw with a ton of volume, but very poor accuracy, which is probably a function of being a little bit smaller and just kind of spamming volume on the feet. Like, there's just so much similar between them in a fight that's likely to go to a decision that I definitely want to be on the plus money side of that coin if we're flipping a coin. From a stylistic standpoint, I think Hebus is actually probably the better finisher. She landed that big spinning wheel kick. That was more of a volume finish. But even on the ground, she attempts way more submissions and goes for submissions. Ricci is a judo black belt who then got a jiu-jitsu black belt, where Hebus is kind of the other way around. And as you'd expect from a judo fighter, staying on top is a priority, consolidating position, winning those minutes. So if this one does get to the ground, which I hope it does because it'd be a fun grappling match, I see Ricci is more likely to hold position and win minutes, where Rebus will play off her back, hunt for submissions, take a little bit more risks. I just don't see those submissions working out against a grappler of this high level, right? So, like, you're probably not going to get a cheeky submission against Tabitha Ricci. She's just too good at that. I'm interested in the striking, too. Both have made some improvements, I would say. Ricci is now dating high-level boxer Callum Walsh, and I'd like to see her not totally abandon her kicks because her boyfriend's a boxer, which we've seen a little bit in recent fights, but she throws a lot more because of that. She presses forward and just throws her hands. She doesn't do much with those strikes. I don't think they're super impactful, but there's going to be some narrow margins and some tough rounds to score. So if she just, threw a bunch of punches and yelled at the end of every combo, as she does now, like, sometimes that's enough to sway the judges. That might be all you need in one fight. Yeah, exactly. But with all that said, if Amanda Hebus was plus money, I'd be betting her too. Like, this is just one that I see is extremely close, but for some reason we're getting as high as plus 170 on one side, so I'll take that any day of the week.
I have a way for you to bet Amanda Hebus at plus money. That's just to take Hebus by decision at even money. I make that closer to minus 130. This fight is about minus 460 to go to a decision. I would much rather bet Hebus by decision than lay her money line at minus 190, minus 200, wherever it is currently. As I said, the model does like Hebus in this matchup. The data in terms of the technical striking, she's outlanding opponents by about 2 strikes per minute at distance. Ricci getting outlanded by 1.7. Now, I do think Ricci's striking has gotten better, especially since she's been dating Callum Walsh. I don't know if that's because she's been dating him or if she's just focusing more on training her striking since she already has her judo and BJJ black belt. But I do think this one plays out more on the feet than on the ground for 15 minutes. And I do prefer Rebus in terms of the striking numbers and then also the size advantage. As I said, 3 inches taller, 5 inches of reach. So I would rather lay Hebus by decision than play her money line at juice. Let's move on to our top props for this weekend. We've each got a few. We've got one, though, that is a consensus play, and that is Buchecha. Marcus Almeida, minus 280 on the money line against Martin Budai at plus 250. Buchecha, 4th degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, multiple time World Jiu-Jitsu and ADCC champion, and IBJJF Hall of Famer. He's 5-1 in MMA, all wins in round 1, last fought in November of 2024. All 5 wins have come in the first round. His 1 loss, he was extended to a decision. Martin Budai, very slow, very plodding, not particularly athletic. I think Almeida could just explode, take him down, and finish him inside of 5 minutes. And they're giving us about plus 200 for Almeida to do so. You can also bet a same game parlay. Buchecha in the under 1.5 rounds at plus 130. I don't think that is necessarily bad either. And the under 1.5 just straight up is about even money. So I think a few different ways to bet Buchecha, but his round 1 sub is about plus 220. His round 1 odds about 2-1. Billy, do you see any potential that he wins via ground and pound here? And I teased you before the show asking if you knew what Buchecha means. Do you have any guesses as to what the definition of his nickname is or where it comes from?
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to admit I don't know that one. Usually I'm pretty good with the, Portuguese there. I guessed it was some kind of animal. You told me that's wrong. Are you going to tell us what it is now that
it's just a cheek. He had chubby cheeks when he was a kid, so they named him Cheek. And then I guess he got into jiu-jitsu. I mean, he's still a big guy.
Yeah.
So he's fighting at heavyweight. You said that you think he can get down to 205 potentially at one point in the future. So maybe chubby cheeks could become skinny cheeks.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. We were talking about it, with the one way in hydration testing, those guys, it's harder for them to cut weight. Also, IBJJF, a lot of grappling organizations, and ONE FC, not known for their strict drug testing regimes. So maybe some of the weight comes off at some point for the 35-year-old. I don't want to speculate, but, big, giant, jacked up Brazilian dude. We probably see how we got there at some point in his career. But I do see a mild chance of a ground and pound. One of his 5 wins is by ground and pound. 20% chance. By taking the sub out of that first round prop, does it improve it by 20%? Like on the price, I didn't actually do the math on that until we were talking about it, so I'm not 100% sure. But my guess is you're not getting enough better of a price on him to win by submission since the market is expecting that to be it. Also, the one loss, you buried the lead a little bit. That was to Rugrug. He lost to Rugrug in just a hilarious fight, falling out of the ring the whole time, just big boys in a ring and won. Go back and it's not a good fight, so I can't in good faith tell anyone to go back and watch it necessarily, but it was silly in the fun ways. Also, last thing before we leave Buchecha, one of my training partners, Jiu-Jitsu black belt / rapper, goes by Lyrical, Leyrycal, has a song called Buchecha. It's just literally a rap song about Buchecha. So if you like rap about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or think that you might like that because you didn't know that was a thing, go check that out. Surprisingly good. I'm probably not doing a great job of making it sound as good as it is, but dude can rap and Buchecha can grapple. So Buchecha round 1, I'm going to be blasting the song.
I need to get out of 10. And can we find that on Spotify, Billy? Is that track available on
Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, all the good stuff.
Love that. Looking forward to checking that out. Maybe our producer David can put a little sound drop in the show for us as well. If like Jacare Souza and I'm blanking on the middleweight who's a decorated BJJ practitioner,
Rodolfo Vieira.
If Rodolfo Vieira and Damian Maia, who's a 4th degree black belt, and like how good is Buchecha's jiu-jitsu compared to these other elite BJJ practitioners we've seen at this level? Is he better?
I don't want to say that he's necessarily, but it's hard to compare across weight classes and eras. Probably better. Like he's probably more accomplished overall than all of them, except maybe Maia. Maia might be the exception. I will say I like the heavier weight guys coming over from jiu-jitsu because heavier weight jiu-jitsu, those guys actually wrestle a little bit more and look for takedowns because you don't want to get stuck on your back under somebody like Roger Gracie or any of the other big guys that he's gone up against. The lighter weight jiu-jitsu players, so many of them just pull guard and work off their back, which is, as we saw by Kron Gracie, a terrible strategy for MMA. So I don't want to say in a straight jiu-jitsu match he's necessarily better. I think his style translates over to MMA better than a lot of the fighters. Even some of these women fighters we were just talking about, Mackenzie Dern among them, likes to play guard when she's doing jiu-jitsu, which is cool if you get the submission in MMA, but the rates of that are so low, it doesn't translate as well. So I like bigger guys coming over from grappling, I think, more than smaller, if I can totally dodge the actual question you asked there.
No. And it's also like a skill discrepancy too when you're bigger. Like fewer of the
Right.
UFC heavyweights, fewer of the MMA heavyweights know how to grapple, know how to do jujitsu. They're just big dudes who are told they're big and they should probably pursue sports. And so they go into combat sports because they're humongous human beings who they can either be a bouncer at a bar or they could go fight in a cage. Like those are your two options in life. So yeah, I think when you actually have jujitsu skill, when you're Jailton Almeida, and even though you're 210 pounds, but you can go up and fight these heavyweights who don't know what they're doing on the mat. I think it is a humongous advantage skill wise, and getting 2-1 on that round one sub or round one finish, regardless, I think seems like a very solid play. That'll be on both of our betting cards this week. And another fight I like to finish, another fighter I like to finish his opponent is Carlos Leal, one of our favorites on this show, despite getting absolutely robbed at gunpoint in his first fight in the UFC in this exact same arena, I believe, against Renat Fakhretdinov. Leal, 10 years younger than Muslim Salikov, the king of Kung Fu. Love Salikov, have bet him a bunch throughout his career. I think I even bet him in his last couple fights where he pulled off the wins, but he's 40 years old. I thought he's been done physically for several years at this point, and basically every time they give him a younger opponent, he tends to look outmatched physically. Has about a round and a half of cardio, but also at this point of his career, I think his durability is just completely gone. Leal, a big favorite here. I think he gets this done pretty quickly. Leal in under 2.5 rounds on a same game parlay is minus 125. Leal in under 1.5 rounds is plus 140. I might bet both of those and then bet his round one prop as well. But I like Leal to pressure Salikov, back him up to the cage, and then finish him with strikes. Should have a significant speed advantage unless Salikov hits him with a spinning attack. I think this is all Carlos Leal. Billy, any thoughts on this fight? Any interest in betting Leal to finish, and any other bets you would consider aside from the couple that I gave out?
Yeah, the one thing I was looking at in this fight was the props, just to see. Leal throws a ton. I think he's averaging like 10 significant strikes per minute, or just under that in the UFC. It's an interesting matchup, though, because Salikov is hard to hit. We're not seeing the significant strike props out yet. I think the market, just the enthusiasm and the heavy money line on Leal is probably going to push that line too high, because if you think he's got a shot at finishing it and he knocks him out before landing too many strikes, that limits it. But also, if he doesn't finish it, it's probably because Salikov's defense will be limiting the amount that he's actually landing. So that's the angle I'm looking at now. They don't have any of those up right now, but I'm looking for those when they come up. I don't want to just say blindly take the under, but if it's a big number, like in the 70s, 80s, probably go the under on that is my thought right now.
He just, even when he finishes people, I think he threw like 47 strikes in 3 minutes in his last fight. He just throws so much volume so quickly. It's like, it's hard to fade that number. But yeah, I do think he ends up finishing this one relatively quickly. We're going to combine our remaining top props with our best bets section, because either of us have an alternative take on how to bet one of these two remaining fights. And there's 4 fights that we will not touch on specifically that we may grab here at the end. But let's start with your best bet, Billy. Said Nurmagomedov, about plus 110 on the money line against Bryce Mitchell. I would admit, before putting in my numbers, before doing the model this week, I wanted to bet Said, because I do think Bryce is very vulnerable, cutting down from 145 to 135. But then also in terms of how he pursues his takedowns, leaving his neck out there for Said to wrap up a ninja choke. So that is why I would imagine you like Said to win inside the distance. That's where I would have leaned as well. The only alternative method, I think, for betting this fight, I think you either go Said inside the distance or you go Bryce by decision. Because if Bryce is doing what he's supposed to do without getting finished, I think he probably has the strength to control and get top time on Said. So either of those bets are plus money. Mitchell decision is plus 135. I like that down. Or Mitchell decision is about plus 160. I like that down to plus 135. You like Nurmagomedov on the money line and inside the distance. Where would you bet those down to? And did I kind of nail your read in terms of the ninja choke?
100%. That front choke series that he does is nasty. Like, a lot of his wins are listed as guillotines, but if you go back and watch it, it's not just the traditional guillotine where you try to squeeze someone's head off. He's wrapping it up the ninja choke style, like a rear naked, which is just a much more dangerous and harder to escape from. That is also the
He's so fast with it too.
Yeah.
He just slaps it on like out of nowhere. He's so quick with it.
And also the exact thing that happened to Bryce Mitchell against Gene Silva like 2 or 3 months ago. Like that exact choke. And honestly, I could see the fight playing out similarly where Nurmagomedov is much faster on the feet. Bryce Mitchell's not going to look faster going down a weight class. He already looks kind of plodding on the feet at 145. Obviously going to be worse at 135. Nurmagomedov works the body really well, maybe catches him with something. Bryce shoots in, gets caught in the exact same choke. I could see this being a repeat to an extent of the Gene Silva fight. Nurmagomedov not as aggressive or as powerful as Gene Silva, but very quick kicks. I like his striking. The aha moment I had about Bryce Mitchell is his primary training is like in his shed at his farm against a bunch of other local dudes. And that makes him a really good hammer, but a really bad nail, because Bryce Mitchell gets to practice top time and going for submissions and controlling you against like random local dudes in Arkansas all the time. But he does not get to practice defending himself against dangerous strikers, working out of submissions that he's not familiar with, really being challenged in any way. And if you go back, like I was high on Bryce Mitchell when he got to the UFC at just 23, but that was based on expecting him to continue to improve, and we haven't really seen that. Like he's pretty much the same dude he's been for the last 6 or 7 years now that we've seen him in there. Nurmagomedov, I think, is probably better than his record suggests in a competitive division, a division that, I don't think Mitchell's going to have an easier time at, even though he is bigger and stronger. Cutting to a different weight class rather than actually improving your skills is a classic trap of MMA fighters, right? Like, oh, these guys just beat me because they're bigger and stronger. Maybe, but if you don't make yourself better, faster, more technical, then the lighter guys are going to do it that way. So I love the money line for Nurmagomedov. It's actually gone against me a little bit since I bet it earlier in the week. I'd play that to like minus 120 or so. Inside the distance, I think probably like 180, something like that. You're right. If you like Mitchell, it's got to be by decision, I think. Like I don't see him getting a submission.
I wouldn't like use some Bryce. I don't know how he finishes this fight. So
yeah. The other thing I would say is Mitchell live, if you get a big price, could exceed the decision price, because Nurmagomedov, fast starter, has faded. For all of his faults, Bryce Mitchell's in real good shape. Like he works on a farm all day and then trains in the farm shed. Like in tremendous shape, doesn't really get tired despite wrestling pretty heavily. So that could be the other angle to put it. You're gambling that you'll get a better price than the decision. Pre-fight may or may not be the case, but those are the two angles I'd look at.
I'm really glad you brought up the training thing with Bryce Mitchell. I think that's been the most under-discussed and overlooked aspect of his career, is the fact that he just trains himself. He's his own coach. He's training with AJ Cunningham, his cousin, who doesn't belong in the UFC. Like, no training partners of UFC caliber, no ways to physically improve. Yeah, cutting weight here, I think he could be an ox. Like, the strength could be a significant thing. He was also never particularly like in shape or ripped at 145. So there's a possibility that he might just be very strong and able to consolidate position and hold Saeed down and have the crowd booing at him for 15 minutes. But no, I was incorrect in saying before either Mitchell by decision or Saeed inside the distance. I think Saeed money line is more than fine. I just would not bet Bryce's money line. I would not lay juice on Bryce in any way, shape, or form here. If you're betting Bryce, take his decision prop. Otherwise, Saeed inside the distance or Saeed's money line. And it's awkward for me because I think this is the first time I've ever given out Bryce like publicly on a bet. I don't really want to bet it. I don't like him as a fighter. I don't think, he has a lot of ways to win aside from just takedowns and control, which he's capable of doing. But my read here before plugging in the numbers was Saeed and that ninja choke. And I think he's going to slap it on. So I'll see if I even bet this fight. The reason I did want to shout this out, this was another of the fights where the underdog is getting more popularity in terms of picks than the betting market is respecting them. Saeed getting picked about 53% of the time here, listed about 43%. I said the same thing for the Ribas and Ricci fight. My initial read was similar to you. Close fight, similar fighters, expected to go to a decision for the Ribas Ricci fight. But the market, my projections are telling me the favorite is undervalued. Kind of same thing here, where I don't necessarily want to bet it because it goes against my pre-fight read. I'd rather pass than probably take the favorite, or I'd rather take Ribas decision plus money, Mitchell decision plus money, smaller bets, not worry too much about it. I'm not laying juice on either of those fighters, to be clear, despite the projected edge. One other fight here where I think we both have landed on the two alternative approaches that you could take for this fight. I do not like Bogdan Guskov as an underdog money line. I think he's a terrible value trap as a underdog money line this week. But if you want to bet his KO prop, by all means, go ahead. I think you either bet Nikita Krylov on the money line and lay the juice, or you bet Guskov by KO at about plus 275 and don't worry too much about it. Krylov coming off of a long layoff before his last fight, nearly 2-year layoff, got knocked out by Dom Reyes, despite getting a lot of respect from the betting market, getting steamed up throughout that week. I bet Krylov in that fight. Guskov is always losing his fights early and then manages to turn the tide and finish his opponents. He does have good power early too. He looks like an albino Anthony Smith, a Siberian Anthony Smith. He's a very difficult man to look at. Kind of looks like an orc. It's like if Josh Emmett and Anthony Smith had a child. I think you end up with Bogdan Guskov, but I'm just not confident in Guskov's ability to grapple at all at this level. He got submitted really quick by Volkan Oezdemir. We saw Krylov, don't want to do the transitive property, but Krylov out-grappled Oezdemir. Oezdemir submitted Guskov very quickly. I think anybody at this level, any of these top 15 fighters who try to grapple Guskov are going to have success doing so. So if Krylov comes out, proactively grapples, I think he wins this fight. I think he finishes it in round 1. If he does not, I think it's going to open the door for Guskov to land that knockout blow, either just standing at range or potentially as Krylov fades down the stretch. Because I think Guskov may have a cardio and durability edge. I just think Krylov has more ways to win the fight and dominate minutes. So you're taking the Guskov knockout side of this fight. Where do you like that one down to, Billy? And then are you interested in live betting this one at all? How do you view like the cardio dynamic between these two?
Yeah, it's a really weird one to live bet. I mean, like just looking at the guys and thinking about how we would normally approach this, the quote unquote obvious side would be Krylov live, but as you've pointed out, like Guskov kind of does a comeback thing more often than you'd expect. I am probably staying away from it with the caveat that if Krylov has to attempt like 7 takedowns to get one in the first round, and then they give him that round, and you think, yeah, he's probably tired, maybe you live bet the other side. I don't know that that's especially likely. I think he's probably either unconscious or on top, like fairly quickly, one way or the other. Like he's either in top position. Much more skilled fighter than Bogdan Guskov, pretty much all around. Not nearly like the physical specimen Guskov is, especially after all the injuries and layoffs and stuff that Krylov has dealt with. Krylov hasn't won a fight since March of 2023, so almost 2.5 years at this point. He might just be washed. Like, they're pretty much the same age, but it's a very different, odometer in terms of the damage they've taken and the careers they've had. The one thing, because I did some MMA math on the Volkan Oezdemir fight, too. I will say Guskov took that on, like, 4 days' notice or something. Like, the Ooze was supposed to fight Johnny Walker, I want to say, on that card before they got Guskov. I'm willing to give him a little bit of a pass. He might be able to deny takedowns just with being bigger and stronger and healthier than you, which goes a long way. If he can't, he probably loses. If he does, he probably gets a knockout at some point. So don't mind your read at all. Probably like, I don't know. It's weird. I almost feel like his knockout prop pretty much should be his money line, so it's hard for me to give a price that says anything different. But 225, 200. Let me put it this way. I think as long as Guskov's knockout prop is a better price than Krylov's money line, I think I would take it that way, because that way you can get both sides and theoretically profit in most scenarios.
I was literally looking at that just now, and yeah, I do kind of like the way that you don't theoretically like have to make it a minus EV bet if you wanted to take Krylov's money line and Guskov by KO. It's not something I would do, but there is a scenario where you could profit betting both, and that is why I think those are the only two bets you should consider betting on this fight. I think those are the vast majority of the win equity. Guskov's money line, as you said, should probably be equivalent to his KO prop, very similar in price. There's 4 fights we did not get to on this card. I'm not sure if you have bets on any of them. I do not as of now. The one fight where I may fire a bet, I saw a price discrepancy on the Yaya and Nguyen fight. Nguyen's inside the distance prop was about minus 150, I want to say, minus 135, minus 125 even. But if you structure his knockout prop and submission props, you can get a much bigger payout than minus 125. I think his submission prop was about 12-1, and his knockout prop might be around plus 125, plus 150, somewhere in there. There was a way to structure those two props instead of betting the inside the distance prop and to find a better payout, structuring them as opposed to just taking the ITD more simply. So that was one that stood out to me in terms of potential value. The best, most interesting fight of this bunch is the Jose Ochoa Asu Almabayev fight. I kind of lean Ochoa there, but I'm staying away. I think Almabayev could grapple him, and there was just no projected value for me. So any bet for you on Ochoa Almabayev, any take for you on that fight. And then we also have the Barrios Sharabolit fight. We have the Elikana Ibo Aslan fight, and then the aforementioned Yaya and Win fight. So Billy, I'm going to let you take it away. Those 4 fights, any bets or reads that you like on those?
Yeah, the only one I should say I'm not convinced that Win is actually that good. Like, he went 1-2 or 2-1 in the Contender Series. The big win was against the aforementioned AJ Cunningham, who, as you pointed out, very much not UFC level. Lost his debut. I don't think Yaya is that great, but like to get plus 300 on Muhammad Yaya seems too long by a little bit, especially with it's the second fight of the night in his home country. The same home country that gave Fakhretdinov like a terrible pre-filled scorecard against.
You know, those scorecards are pre-filled for Yaya 100%. Yeah. That's why I'd bet and win inside the distance or pass. Yeah.
Right. And you have to make it to the judges for that to matter, which is not a given by any stretch. But so I'm interested in that a little bit. I'm very interested in the Ochoa Almabayev fight. Like you, I'm leaning Ochoa, and this is a little bit weird, but it's because I think Lonnie Kavanaugh is such a great prospect that I kind of by transitive property think Ochoa is a little underrated here. He's looked good with his grappling defense so far in the UFC. Pretty binary fight where Almabayev needs to wrestle, Ochoa needs to strike. The only hang up, like if this weren't the case, I'd be betting this immediately, but Ochoa took this fight on pretty short notice. Not a huge deal, young guy. I'm sure he's in shape and in camp all the time. Fighting someone like Asu Almabayev is the kind of fighter that you want a specific camp tailored to, because he has such like a distinct and clear style. You know what he's going to do. You'd like to train to stop that specifically. It's not on our current content schedule right now. I might actually just do a full breakdown of that and have that up if I get the time this afternoon, because I would like the opportunity to watch some more tape on these guys because they're fun fighters, so I want to see. We'll see about that. I'm with you. I'm leaning Ochoa, but keep your eyes out for the article. Follow me in the app. If any of that changes, that is where you'll find it.
Yeah, I think a fight in North America or a fight for Ochoa on a full camp, I'd be more interested. Fighting in Abu Dhabi, Almabayev being the A side, probably fighting, having to make all that travel on short notice. No. That's a pretty tough spot for Ochoa to go up against. And again, pre-filled scorecards potentially. Almabayev, the takedown is going to get a little bit more favor, right? We typically see the grappling, the takedowns, the control get a little bit more deference in Abu Dhabi, in the Middle East, than it does over here in North America, where damage gets a little bit more prioritized. So yeah, I think for those reasons, it's a pass for me. Really looking forward to watching that one though. And again, just to reiterate, a noon start time for this card. All 24 fighters made weight this morning, so all 12 fights seem good to go. But that'll do it for our UFC betting preview. You can find more UFC betting content from both Billy and myself on actionnetwork.com and in the Action Network app. And if you'd like to instantly tail some of the bets that we discussed on today's show, make sure to look for the quick links both in the podcast and the video description, or visit actionnetwork.com/betnow. Don't forget to download that free award-winning Action Network app and sign up for Action Pro for immediate access to expert picks and analysis. Best of luck with all your bets this weekend. Enjoy the violence. Thank you for listening. See you back here next week.